Well, good morning, Crime Crunchies. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I am Courtney C. And here at Crime Crunchies, we just don't take a bite out of crime. We crunch it and we go crunch, 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 crunch. So again, we are going to be covering Nancy Guthrie case today. And I have to say, I guess I've been having some issues with my sound recently. So I apologize. Apparently, when I've been playing videos through I use StreamYard, and apparently the videos are playing. You can see the videos, you can hear me, but you cannot hear the actual video. So I am going to been playing around with the settings, and I'm hoping that I have my sound worked out. But if you are here and you aren't hearing audio, please just let me know. And stick around, because at the end of this video, I'm going to talk about my next video. So please stay to the very end. And of course, as always, please subscribe and like. It's completely free and it helps the channel and all that gobble goo, all the gobble goo of the gobble goos. We love it. We're a growing channel, and I like to get down to business and dive right in. So here we go. So let's talk about Nancy Guthrie. I have been referring to the suspect seen on her front porch in my mind as the Walmart Wrangler, because more and more information is coming out about his garb and his little outfit that he has on, that the jacket, the backpack, and the holster up front, that apparently those are Walmart items. So I've been just kind of calling him the Walmart Wrangler. I don't know about you guys, but I wake up at 3 in the morning and I'm so invested in this case. I'm waking up and I'm checking all the latest posts that are coming out on YouTube and on websites. And I'm getting, and I know it takes time. Obviously it takes time, but I've got to feel so frustrated for the family because they've been on such an emotional roller coaster. I really am thinking a lot about Savannah and Annie and Cameron and what they must be going through every day with, hearing what's going on, the, information about them going after people, the SWAT teams. It seems like when they do roll out and they're questioning people, it's a lot of drama. I'm hoping that the Guthrie folks have an inside track on what's really going on behind the scenes and that they're being kept in the loop. I have to assume that they are. But this is horrible for all of us. I mean, the entire world is invested in this. And so I just really think about the family a lot. And I'm really, praying for some resolution, whether it's what they want, just a resolution, some closure. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about today is this sheriff. And, again, I'm wanting him to do his job. I'm wanting everyone to play nice in the sandbox with the FBI. I heard what his idea about using his lab in Florida, I believe it's Deerfield Beach, Florida, is the lab that Pima County is contracted to work with. And apparently this particular lab, according to Ashley Banfield, has done great work in getting the Colonial Highway murderers, red rummers. So they've actually done and cracked some really good cases. And I don't have a problem with that, in particular. And the idea behind the sheriff using this lab, he's contracted with it. The first DNA that they got out of the house, he sent to the Deerfield Beach lab. And in his mind, because technically Pima County is still in charge of this investigation, all the other swabs that they're getting from any workers of Nancy Guthrie, family, friends, anyone who's come across the Uber driver, he's sending them all to the same lab in Florida, because then that lab can quickly look at what they've gathered and make a match. They can compare. They've got all the information. So logically speaking, that makes sense to me. It makes sense to then have all the DNA swabs go in to one lab and compare everything and just make it faster. Plus, this lab is smaller than Quantico, which is where the FBI wanted to send the DNA. So this lab is pushing it to the front of the line. And apparently, this sheriff has had a history with the FBI long ago. The FBI came in for an internal investigation and promised Sheriff Nanos that they would keep him in the loop as far as how the investigation goes. But they didn't. And really quick, Mopar Pollock, thank you so much for your comment. I'm going to play a quick video and I'm going to test my sound. So if you can just hang on 1 second, I'm going to get back to my thought. Let me check my sound while I have a friendly face on here. Let me play this sound and let me know if you can hear this.
911 is called.
Nancy Guthrie, 84-year-old white female, 5'4", 150. Brown and blue,
if you can let me know if you can hear my sound in that video.
Arrive at Nancy's house and the search begins.
If you cannot hear the sound, please let me know.
Guthrie, Savannah's 84-year-old mother, now at
you can hear the sound. Yes. Okay. That's good. All right. Thank you so much. I had a friend come in and help me check my sound because it wasn't working yesterday. So going back to my thought. So the sheriff is contracted with the lab in Florida. The sheriff is sending all of the samples that he's done to his lab in Florida. They are working it as quickly as possible. They're turning it around. The sheriff supposedly has some beef in the past with an investigation about 10 years ago or so, where the FBI came in to investigate internal issues of that department and promised Sheriff Nanos that they would keep him in the loop. The FBI did not keep him in the loop. And so he, I guess, got a little butthurt by that and had some issue. And even though Sheriff Nanos now is saying that he's not withholding any information, FBI people are coming forward and they are saying that he is. So going back to the DNA, the FBI wants the DNA samples to go to Quantico. Quantico is the best of the best of the best. I can see from this history of the sheriff not wanting to send the samples to Quantico, A, because he's trying to control the situation. B, maybe he has a fear that if he sends the samples to Quantico, that they'll never get the samples back or they won't get them back in a timely fashion. I mean, that would be something I would be concerned about as well, is, this lab in Florida that he's using, they're obviously pushing this to the front. They're returning DNA results very quickly. And maybe he feels like the DNA is just going to go into La La Land. Okay. But then there's back and forth on exactly what DNA he has. And then going back to what DNA he has, it is, I guess, known or said that the lab in Florida cannot check their results against the CODIS, okay, which is the database where they keep all the criminal DNA. So if the lab in Florida cannot check the DNA samples that they have against CODIS, they're still going to have to send the DNA samples to Quantico. And so therein is kind of where a problem, I can see that would be a problem because they're actually creating a separate step, an additional step. And so I'm not sure, in my mind, if I was the sheriff, if I could get a surety that Quantico is going to move my samples to the front of the line and I can get my samples back quickly, then I would have no problem going with that. And I have to wonder if the Guthrie family isn't sharing this information with the sheriff, because if I'm the Guthrie family, I would probably be talking to the sheriff by now and saying, look, I feel like, if you're causing problems and you're not moving this forward and, you need to put your ego aside, then that's a problem. And I'm hoping that they are communicating that to the sheriff, and everybody needs to get along. If President Trump has said that he's going to throw any resources that they need at this, then that tells me that it's very possible that that Quantico would move these test results up to the front, and they could get them turned around quickly. So is this a control thing from the sheriff? Does it make sense to keep everything down in Florida? I mean, if everything is there, that makes sense to me. But if they're still going to have to send it to Quantico to run it against CODIS in the end, then I don't know. I think that if he could get some response that CODIS is, or that Quantico is going to move it up to the front, then I say that he probably should just use Quantico. There's been a lot of kickback about, the heavy SWAT detail going out to these neighborhoods. Of course, this last search warrant was a federal search warrant. The FBI had enough meat on the bone that they were able to take it before a judge or a magistrate and get it signed off in order to do the search. It's just, I think that they're using SWAT because the person who is seen on the camera going into Nancy Guthrie's home is armed, obviously violent, has taken Nancy, done whatever with Nancy. And so they're going in with the most amount of force that they absolutely can. And I think that that's going to get old pretty quick, though. I think that, these are regular neighborhoods. They're detaining people, they're questioning people, but they haven't arrested anybody. And again, I do understand that they might have to go to step A in order to get more information to get to step B and then to get to step C. I totally get that. But I think that it feels like, with the infighting between the sheriff and the FBI, everybody's just kind of wondering if this isn't a Keystone Cops. It feels fumbly. It feels bumbly. It's hard to say. And I feel like from this one, my gut is telling me that the way that they went into this last one where they had the 3 detainees just 2 nights ago, that one could probably be linked to the vehicle that they ended up impounding and taking away on the trailer. It's very possible that neighbors had turned in Ring video, or they pulled somebody's cell phone from a tower. And I think that maybe the focus of this was that Range Rover. The Range Rover was sitting in the parking lot at Culver's hamburger restaurant, fast food restaurant. It did look dirty. The interesting thing that I've seen, watching Jennifer Coffindaffer, she's an ex-FBI person. There's no doubt that when they had the video up of them searching the Range Rover, that they had like the yellow sheets guarding the back. And that's a clear sign that there was a body in the back of that vehicle. They only shield the back of a vehicle if they've come across something like that. So we don't know if that is a vehicle. They haven't released any information. I could see why they need to wait on that. It's, I'm hoping that there is something good to find out. But the only thing that's really standing out from the Range Rover is that was specifically targeted for this raid. And the fact that there were sheriffs holding up that yellow sheet on either side when they opened up the hatch of that SUV, they were shielding whatever was in that vehicle. And I know Jennifer Coffindaffer was saying that she was watching the faces of the sheriffs because she's been on enough scenes where she knows that when you open that door, there's going to be an odor, okay, which is really sad. She was looking to see a sheriff like look away because that whiff. And she said she thought she saw the female sheriff make that look and just kind of look away a little bit. So we don't know what they were seeing in the back of that Range Rover, but they were being very careful with the sheet. And I guess that they had the license plate covered with some paper, and they did load that up on the flatbed, and they did take that out. So if they took in 3 suspects and were questioning them. They didn't detain them, but that doesn't mean that they're not going back to get them later, or they're linking everything together. Even Carlos in Rio Rico the other day, what happens when they come in is they swab for DNA. They take their phone, they mirror the phone. I guess it doesn't take very long. They probably just plug into the phone. They mirror the phone, they get everything off the phone, they scrub the phone, and then they do whatever questioning. And if they don't have enough meat to actually detain them, they let them go. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to go back later and get more people. They're probably just building an entire scenario. So I'm still very, very, very hopeful that something will come out of this. It's just very frustrating for the family. And, going back to the sheriff, who I feel like he's been doing a lot of double talk. He says that he's playing nice with the FBI. And in his first interview, he says that they called him. And then in the same conversation, he says that he called them. He said they called him, and then he said he called them. And then in another interview, about this whole glove being found in the home, then there isn't a glove that's being found inside the home. He says he's not doing any interviews and there's no press conferences, and yet he's still making rounds on the television circuit. I think Fox News just had an interview with him. Supposedly he has a really big ego and he likes being front and center. So, and if he has a grudge against the FBI, it's just really interesting. But what I am really upset about is he just comes right out, and here's TMZ. He says Nancy Guthrie could be found 1 hour from now, or it could take weeks or even years to locate her. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos made the sobering remarks in a recent interview with the New York Times, underscoring the very real possibility Nancy's kidnapping case could drag on for quite some time. That it's like, why would he say that? I mean, he's not giving any information. It just sounds like, I don't know. It sounds like he just talks out of both sides of his mouth. And I'm not trying to be negative. Again, we need to support law enforcement and everything that they're doing. I'm hoping that they're doing a lot more. But this guy is just coming off a little strange to me. The fact that I think it was day 3, I might be getting that wrong, but he's pictured at that Tucson college basketball game, saying he not doing press conferences. They haven't done a press conference in over a week, but he is doing all the circuit of the TV shows, and then saying that it could take years. And it makes me think about, Savannah Guthrie and Annie. If it's going to take years, how long is the media going to be camped out in front of Nancy Guthrie's home and Annie Guthrie's home? Annie Guthrie lives right there, all of her things. I don't know if she has any pets. She can't even go back to her home. And I would just think that, and they're moving, but they're not sharing anything. And I guess, again, it's like a broken record. I get it that they can't share so much, but I don't know. There's supposedly DNA that they have confirmed. There's DNA that they found in the home that doesn't belong to Nancy Guthrie, any of the family, or any of the people who might have come to work on the home, and that DNA sample was sent to the Florida lab. So if the Florida lab gets that DNA result, they're going to match it against, and it sounds like they've actually already matched it against all the other people. But the fact that the lab in Florida doesn't have the credentials to upload that into CODIS, they're still going to have to send it to Quantico. So where is that test right now? Can Quantico get that turned around pretty quickly? Looks like, and I'm going to look up at Othram, Nancy Guthrie, because they made a comment about, all right, let me share my screen. All right, so This is on Fox News. And again, I go between CNN, News Nation, TMZ. I'm using all the resources, so I'm not picking and choosing. Hi, Tina. I agree. I hated that he said over a year, because it just seems like he's just talking. I mean, that doesn't seem very sensitive to the family. And I mean, supposedly the hope was that she was still alive. He, in the first, press conference or second press conference, stated that he felt that she was still alive. And I want to reiterate that they have a video of the perp walking up to the house. They haven't shared everything that they got on that Nest camera. And I'm convinced that they have a video of him leaving with her, with Nancy. So they know that she was either walking. There doesn't look like there are drag marks. So if they think she's alive, why would he come out to the New York Times and say it could take a week, a month, or years? I mean, I think that feels really, really harsh. So thank you. I completely agree. It just made my stomach drop. And it's like, okay, so how much longer can people camp out in front of her house? So let me get through this, and then I have some other ideas about that. Genealogy company exec slams Pima sheriff's devastating move to ship Nancy Guthrie evidence to Florida lab. Othram, which helped identify Brian Koberger, says critical evidence should have gone directly to FBI instead of Florida lab. And again, Othram does the genealogy with the DNA, which they're going to probably have their hands on this as well. So I don't know if they work better with Quantico. So a high-profile forensic genealogy company slammed the Pima County Sheriff's Department for sending critical evidence in the Nancy Guthrie case to a private lab in Florida instead of directly to the FBI. This is so devastating, said Othram co-founder Kristen Middleman. DNA Labs International is a traditional forensic lab that consumes evidence to make an STR, short tandem repeat profile. So I don't understand why it didn't go to Quantico, since they can do this better and faster than anyone, and they have a pipeline to flip it immediately to inferring identity with us. Othram is a Texas-based forensic genetic genealogy lab that was instrumental in helping authorities identify infamous murderer Brian Koberger, among other high-profile criminals. According to a report by KOLD, which is a Tucson TV station, DNA Labs International, located in Deerfield Beach, Florida, is where Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos has sent key evidence to be examined. State records confirm that Arizona has a contract with the company for biological laboratory services that began in 2022 and runs through March. A Middleman stressed that time is critical in every case, especially Guthrie's. She also said that Othram worked the case of formerly unidentified murder victim Evelyn Colon after DNA Labs International couldn't crack the case. Colon, previously known as Beth Doe, was red-rummed in New Jersey in 1976. She was identified in 2021. So Ashley Banfield had said that the lab in Florida was a good one. Federal law enforcement source told Fox News Digital that the evidence will need to be retested by the FBI anyway. I've heard that they're going to redo their own stuff. It's just the FBI developed this method and can do it so much better without destroying the evidence, which is another concern, that if it takes some of the sample to create a profile by the Florida lab and there's not enough left for Quantico to do what they need to do, that's a bad thing. And I have heard that. It's without destroying the evidence, the source said, I've seen so many cases go to Florida and be consumed. Also, they're not as fast, and in this case, time matters. I was thinking that the Florida lab would be faster than Quantico because there's not as much red tape. But again, having the president behind this, I assume maybe they could help. On Thursday, a federal law enforcement source accused Nanos of blocking the FBI from obtaining the evidence, first reported by Reuters and confirmed by Fox News Digital. It risks further slowing a case that grows more urgent by the minute. I mean, it is urgent, but now the sheriff is just saying, "Oh, well, it could take months, it could take years." I mean, the sheriff reiterated that message in an interview with Fox News' Matt Finn on Friday. He told Finn that investigators have been using the Florida lab from the start of the investigation and that Guthrie family DNA as well as other DNA had already been sent there. And I get that. And that does make sense to me. Why split your evidence to two different labs that could create a conflict? But more importantly, it adds that additional step. But it sounds like there's going to be an additional step anyway, because it's going to have to go to Quantico to be run against CODIS, and it sounds like it needs to go to Quantico in order for it to go to Othram. So is Sheriff Nanos an egomaniac who has to have control and micromanaging this and wants to be the one to crack the case? And that's kind of what I'm feeling. I'm feeling like I feel like he's just all over the case. And I feel like he's more into his interviews than anything else. And I just can't imagine that the Guthries are not talking to him about this, because they have to be hearing this as well. And even if he's saying that they started with the lab in Florida, it doesn't mean that they don't have to change, especially if Quantico is going to consume less of the sample, which is very, very important. So getting back to the Guthries, I don't think that there's been any more posts by Savannah in a while. And I have to wonder, so a regular family, when they have a missing, and it's not like they're not regular, but a regular family that has a member who's missing and supposedly been kidnapped, they're going to be out there pounding the pavement. They're going to be hanging up flyers. They're going to be helping with the search. I don't know if it's because of Savannah being, very high profile that they aren't helping, but considering that Savannah is on TV, she's posted a few things on Instagram, and I'm not begging on her. I'm just wondering if there isn't a way for her to use her being famous as a way to help. Do an interview, talk more about what they know, give us information about why they think that she might still be alive. There has to be something else that Savannah could do with her celebrity to help with this. I know the FBI has increased the reward to $100,000. I don't know that that's enough money for someone to rat fink out a family member or a friend. I think that it would make sense for NBC, the Guthries, to put up a private $1 million reward. That's life-changing money. And I do feel like that could be the way that they get somebody to narc. Now, of course, we've got the DNA that's being checked. They're closing in maybe on trying to figure out where the suspect bought their items. Again, I'm calling him, in my mind, I woke up in the night and I'm like, okay, this is the Walmart Wrangler, because apparently the holster is Walmart, the backpack is Walmart, the jacket is Walmart. We don't know where the ski mask was purchased, but they can take images from the video or still shots. The FBI can slip them into the security system in Walmart, and it's going to do all its beep, boop, beep, boop, 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 and it's going to find the people at the cash register, whether it's cash, card, whatever, and it's going to find the person and match up tennis shoes, what they purchased, and if they can get, a store, that's just all good evidence in trying to, get this person located. I know that there was some news that I think is really, really cool. Brian Enton reported that apparently, and I did not know this, the pacemaker in Nancy's chest, even if she has passed, the pacemaker still goes. It's still working. And if they had her phone or her Apple Watch, and there's something called a signal sniffer that they're able to put, they said on the bottom of a helicopter and go low, but why wouldn't they just do like a drone? If they flew a couple drones over an area with this, they could detect, it would sync with the phone or the Apple Watch. Her pacemaker will sync with the phone or the Apple Watch. And, if the FBI had this before, I would think that they would have wanted to do that prior. I mean, that makes sense to have done that when they were searching the grounds of the Guthrie house. Apparently, you have to be within like 10 to 30 feet of the pacemaker. You'd have to go over it slowly. Because it's a small area, it's going to be very time consuming. So it could be that maybe they held that off for later in the investigation so that they could, maybe, because that's going to take man hours. And we've already heard that, say they had 6 homicide detectives, they're already down to like 4. People are going back to their regular jobs now. They're pulling people in during these SWATs, but, technology. And, I'm excited to hear, I'd never heard of this before. I had no idea that a pacemaker is still going, which is great. So maybe that will be what actually cracks the case, is her pacemaker being picked up by her cell phone or this signal sniffer that they have. The helicopter is going to have to go low, and these, poor neighbors have already been through so much, but I know that they're willing to do whatever they have to do for Nancy to get found. So the signal sniffer is the latest thing. We've got the DNA that we're still holding out for. That is the MIA, or the nebulous DNA found from the home. The sheriff will not specify whether there was, a struggle inside the home, or if there's DNA or blood inside the home. But somebody, I think, had mentioned, I don't remember if it was Brian Netton, just one of these guys that we're all watching, I'm sure, has mentioned that they thought that there was blood inside the home. So again, it's going to go back to, what did they see on that camera? Did they see the perpetrator going out the front door with Nancy? What condition was she in? Did they see the Range Rover that they took away the other night from Culver's? Had they seen the Range Rover going in the neighborhood with license plate readers? Are they able to get this guy, the Walmart Wrangler, in a Walmart purchasing these items to help close in? Profilers are really looking at this case, and the one thing that I was thinking is that both of these SWATs went out to houses where there was a male in late 20s, early 30s, living with a mother or a mother-in-law. So it's very possible that they're getting tips, and that these particular people that they've been swatting, the mother with the son and the brother in the car that got detained the other night, and then Carlos and Rio Rico living with his mother-in-law. It makes me think that they're profiling, they're checking probably cell phones, they're getting tips, they're looking at, everything. So I'm guessing that there's going to be more SWATs, because they're just bound and determined to go in with full riot gear, not knowing what they're going to get on the other side of the door. And thankfully, everybody's been very cooperative so far, including, the Guthrie family has been very helpful. I'm pretty sure Tommaso is completely off the table at this point, even though the sheriff is saying no one's off the table. I just have to wonder how the Guthries are filling their days. I mean, at what point does Savannah go home? At what point does Cameron go home? I would feel so torn and devastated to think that I would have to go home and want to leave this situation there with their precious, beautiful mother in this situation. But at this point, the likelihood of her really being alive is so low. And it doesn't help when the sheriff's making comments that it could take years. In the news cycle, they're hanging on to this pretty, they've got their fangs in this news cycle, but eventually something else is going to happen and they're going to switch off of this and the heat's going to be off. So I just really hope, some folks from the FBI or past PIMA, they're saying they think this is not going to go cold, which is so hopeful. And that's me. I'm hanging on to any hope. I'm really hopeful, trying to keep positive. But, the people that know and have done this for their livelihood, they're saying that that this will not go cold, and that, you know, every day they're getting closer. They have the technology. They can crack this. They have, you know, more on this than they do on a lot of other cases, especially with that camera, with the weird DNA from the house, touch DNA. So let's just hope that they do, and that we do get some resolution for the family, whatever that is. You know, going back to the Range Rover, maybe there was something in the Range Rover why they had that covered with those sheets the other night. You know, maybe something was in there. Maybe the family does have answers now. You know, I'm going to stay on this. I am going to be filming this afternoon. I'm going to be doing a God's Misfits episode this afternoon. I'm probably going to just take a quick break, and I'm going to come back live, and I'm going to give everyone an update of the God's Misfits. And thank you everybody for coming. Please remember to subscribe and like and share and comment and all of those good things. I am going to be at Crime Con. I don't know if anybody's going to be there, but I'm super excited to be there. I'm hoping to get to meet folks. I'm going to have some little handouts for people if I run into you. But again, thank you so much for joining me. Crunchies, you guys are my crunchies, and I am Courtney C. Please remember to subscribe and like. I will be back soon with more live content. Until then, take care and crunch, 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 crunch. Have a great day.